2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC. Also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app and the app of the station. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. You know the routine. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And now we also say good Erev Yontiv, Chag Sameach. We are now ushering in this evening into October 16th through the 18th for two very, very special, important days. So I want to welcome everyone, whether you're listening by day or the evening. So hello on the radio, hello online, hello to the world. So here we are, dear friends, following the 7 joyous days of Sukkot. We now come to the happy holiday of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. So these next 48 hours on the Jewish calendar have a special name, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. Now in the diaspora, that's outside of the land of Israel, the first day is known by its biblical name, Shmini Atzeres. That would make it tomorrow. We still dwell in the Sukkah, but without a blessing. And on Monday, this is Monday, October the 17th, during the morning services, Yiska, the memorial prayer for the departed, is also said on this day. The second day, which would be the Tuesday, October the 18th, has a name. It's called Simchat Torah, during which we complete and immediately begin the annual Torah's reading cycle. And this joyous milestone is marked by dancing, traditionally following 7 circuits known as Hakafot, as the Torah scrolls are held aloft and join in with the dancing. And both days are celebrated by nightly candle lighting, and both days include festival meals both at night and day. In Israel, the entire holiday is compacted into one heady 24-hour period. So, let's concentrate today on understanding the depth of these next 48 hours on the Jewish calendar, again, Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, and come to an appreciation for what these days represent and why we are celebrating it, and its significance as we put it into context of this entire period of the year, starting out with Rosh Hashanah, then we had Yom Kippur, then we had the important first days of Sukkot, and now we come to the conclusion. You see, there's definitely a neat, intuitive order to the Jewish festivals, except for one enigmatic festival that seems out of place. So, again, here's the story. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are not really festivals. At any rate, we understand what we're doing there. What are we doing, or what are we celebrating on these 2 days? A new year is starting. Now, there are 3 festivals: Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. But not really, because there are actually 3.5 if you count Shmini Atzeres, and which is also Simchas Torah, and we'll get to that. But do we count it as its own festival? That's the problem, and kind of a paradox. See, on the one hand, tomorrow, Shmini Atzeres, is just the 8th day of Sukkot. That's why it's called Shmini, which is the Hebrew word for 8. But on the other hand, it's a great festival all of its own, with its own meaning, its own name, and its own rituals. So great and so big that it's a Jewish custom to celebrate on this festival more than any other festival on this next 24 hours known as Shmini Atzeres. To focus matter further, we also celebrate Simchas Torah on this day, on the second day of Shmini Atzeres. So we're actually concluding this holiday of Sukkot with its own holiday called Shmini Atzeres, and then follows into into Simchas Torah. So Simchas Torah is the day when we complete the annual cycle of Torah reading and start it up again right from the beginning. Okay, fair enough. We take out the Torahs, as I mentioned, and we dance, and it's an amazing. It's a pretty, which is pretty strange in itself, But what does that have to do with the holiday of Sukkot, or still the enigmatic Shmini Atzeres? If you think about this, why are we celebrating the Torah conclusion and beginning reading of it again now? Wouldn't it make more sense to celebrate it on Shavuot? That's the day when the Torah was received at Mount Sinai. At any rate, how many cultures do you know of where they dance with a book? So one explanation for this out-of-place festival is that it's really a continuation of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, after all, was the day that Moses came down from the mountain with second sets of tablets. The first tablets, as you all know, suffered a catastrophic ending with the golden calf. Here was Moses with these tablets recording instructions heard by not only not to worship idols, and then they were dancing around a golden calf. So he smashed them. Now, after another 80 days and a new set of tablets, the people saw and heard that they had been forgiven. So on Shmini Atzeres, we celebrate receiving those second tablets. But why then? Why not immediately after Yom Kippur? Why does Sukkot have to come in between? If Yom Kippur is the day when they were forgiven, so why would they be waiting so long to celebrate it until the end of Sukkot? And again, which day are you going to celebrate the Torah? The original lighting and thunder, voice of God, or in wonder, the day it was given, or the day the replacement tablets arrived? You see, everything starts coming together once we look beneath the surface, which, by the way, is something in life in general. We need to get a better sense of the sequence of the holidays, of the festivals, a deeper and richer sense. If you're a farmer in the land of Israel, the sequence makes perfect sense. Let's try it. Passover is described in the Torah as the festival in the month of the spring. It's a festival. The Torah doesn't explicitly tell us to be happy. That makes sense because spring is when things are springing up. Aside from some animal feed crops, nothing's yet ready for harvest. And you don't yet know what might spring out of this springing up. 50 days later comes Shavuot, called by the Torah the festival, the harvest festival, Chag HaAsif. Now, the wheat is being cut and bundled, but still left in the field to be collected. The Torah tells us it's time to celebrate. Fine. Finally, after a sum of growth and hard work, comes Sukkot, called by the Torah the ingathering festival. That's the word Chag HaAsif. All the grain has been stored, and the fruits of the trees have been picked as well. And what do you know? The Torah tells us 3 times to celebrate on Sukkot. Of course, that's a localized meaning. The Torah has universal relevance in all places, in all times, in all socioeconomic circumstances. So the harvesting theme has a deeper meaning, one that applies to us as well, even if you don't have, farms. Or put it like this: the outer harvesting season's meaning is really just a reflection of the inner, applicable under all circumstances meaning. So the deeper meaning is that God is the farmer, and the Torah and the mitzvahs are his seeds and crop, and we are the earth, using this metaphorically speaking. Torah, after all, is compared to food. Just as it's metabolized with your mind and your heart, mitzvahs are compared to fruit, the fruits of all the learning and that metabolizing. And of course, our job is to put it all together and to watch the mitzvahs grow. So when we left Egypt, we went through 3 stages in the seeding and sprouting of Torah and mitzvahs, each smack at the right season. Because the seasons in this world are only a reflection of the seasons above, which were played out in this physical plane in that year when we left Egypt. So first came Passover when we left Egypt. Thinking back, it was a pretty wild thing to do. Just walk out of Egypt into the desert, trusting God and his servant Moses that everything would be okay. God looked at and said, I see something sprouting here, but just sprouting. The ground is fertile. There's a people ready to go there, but they haven't yet been told exactly what's wanted of them. So Passover is all about simple faith, which is a good thing to have because God is the ultimate in simple oneness. And only simple faith can get us in touch with that. But it's also very precarious. As the Talmud reminds us, a thief also has faith in God. And he's about to perform a robbery. He says, this is the definition of a thief. He prays to God that he should be successful. You see, faith provides fertile soil, but you can't be sure what might grow from it. This thief, he has faith in God, and he asks God to make him successful, do something wrong. So when it comes Shavuos, it's God's first harvest. That's when we stand at Mount Sinai and shout with enthusiasm, yes, we will do all the mitzvahs. We will learn the Torah. We want to be a people. Really exciting. That faithful earth is yielding its bounty. So you see, dear friends, what the calendar is actually a reflection of something deeper. And that, by the way, is something how we should look at life as well. So back to this. The faithful earth is yielding its bounty, but it's still out there in the field, yet to come home. So what typically happens? There's the Sukkot stage. Sukkot is all about doing. We absorb the rules, we've sprouted them into fruitful actions, and now we're sitting inside our Torah-designated hut, in which almost anything we do is a mitzvah. As God says, break out the champagne, the harvest is in. Just one problem, though. It didn't happen that way. We got the Torah, then we messed up big time. The Golden Calf affair, right? Remember that. So, look, things went out of whack. And we went ahead and made another god, the Golden Calf. Those tablets of stone with the 10 Commandments were smashed to powder, along with the faith we showed when we left Egypt. So that bountiful field with all of its sheaves just went up in smoke. So the whole thing doesn't work. The real world didn't line up with the ideal world. It worked like things usually work down here. It's a world where people mess up. And the order of the holidays doesn't seem to fit into the world order, this world order either. Unless you look yet one little deeper below the surface. Instead of seeing this as just an idealized harvest sequence, look at it as a relationship forming. It's not just a matter of us absorbing Torah and popping back fruits. It's about fusing and bonding with the Torah, and thereby with the giver of the Torah. Amazing as it may seem, there's something our world can achieve in a way that no ideal world would be able to do. Not just despite our failures, but because of our failures. And here is how it works. So, dear friends, we're getting an idea of the inner workings of the Jewish calendar and bringing us, of course, to these next 24, 48 hours and what the celebration is all about. So how do you know the two have become one? They can act like one, talk like one, and even think like one. But you don't really know until you've tried ripping them apart. If they're really one, no matter how traumatic was the falling apart, eventually they'll just have to pop back together again. And even as they are apart, inside they remain one. So what happens with the Golden Calf affair? We cut ourselves off from God, from everything we had agreed and accepted. But we discovered that we couldn't stay apart. And God too couldn't divorce himself from us. So that's what we had Yom Kippur for. We were reunited as one. The same occurs with each and every one of us as we return to our roots. When Maimonides wants to explain why one who has stumbled, fallen into a muck and mire, picked himself up and returned is dearest to God than the most innocent, purest soul, he says, because he has tasted the taste of sin, and parted from it. In other words, it's not just that he's struggling harder to control himself. For harder work, he certainly gets a great raise and promotion, but there's more. The bond of pure and innocent is never certain. What if they would be tempted? What if this soul would stumble? But the one who has been there, so to speak, that soul shows the most resilient of bonds. Ironically, through failure, God achieves his greatest success. So if we think of the festivals following a sequence of fusion in perfect marriage, Shmini Atzeres that we're about to celebrate is the ultimate stage of bonding. Atzeres, as our great rabbis explain, Shmini Atzeres represents absorption. Absorption, Atzeret. It's the day when all the energy and the light of all the preceding holy days becomes totally absorbed within us. It's the day we celebrate our entirely super-rational, inextricable, nuclear fusion bond with another, with Hashem, with the Torah. Such a bond that we don't even have to look inside the scroll to affirm that we like or understand a thing it says. It belongs to us, and we belong to it. We pick it up, kiss it, and dance with crazy, like crazy. Rabbi Isaiah Horowitz, who is the author of the Shnei Luchas Abris, the Shalah, writes that there is an allusion to every festival and the happenings of every time of the year in the Torah portion we read at that particular time. At the time of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, we read the last Torah portion of the Torah. And there's one line there that sums up the very essence of the day. It's a famous line, one that we often sing on Simchas Torah. It goes like this, the way it's sung. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Moirosha kehilas Yaakov, Moirosha kehilas Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, which translates, the Torah that Moses commanded us is the inheritance of the community of Jacob. What's the point of this? Rashi asks, and writes the following: we will hold it tight and we will not abandon it. Well, that's one way of translating those words, but there's deeper than that. It has to be, because what does holding tight have to do with an inheritance? But the word for holding, just as in English, can also mean a real estate property holding, except that in biblical view, every citizen was landed, and the land and the citizen could not be disconnected. Even if you sold your property, as we all know, in the Jubilee year, once in 50 years, it would come back to you. If not to you, then to your children or grandchildren, whoever stood as your heir. So Rashi is saying that the Torah is a kind of an inheritance. Even if your parents and their parents as well were for whatever reason torn away from Torah, you still inherited the entire estate with all of its keys. And really, it's never left. As Rashi says, we will not abandon it. Beneath the surface, the bond was always there. It has to be, because we are one. One with the Torah, one with the giver of the Torah, and one with each other forever. And that is why I encourage everybody to join your synagogue, join our synagogue. Let's sing and dance. And tonight, on Sunday, we will have services at 6:01, followed by a short hakafot, short little dancing, to identify with those who are dancing in the land of Israel. And then on Simchas Torah Eve, again around 7 o'clock, we will continue the hakafos, and everybody is welcome to come and sing and dance. And but it's very important that if you wish to come and participate, let us know at 516-739-3636. 516-739-3636. So you see, for the 7 days of Sukkot, we have been walking around in circles. And we're talking about carrying an assortment of green and yellow flora. Right? We've had the lulav and the esrog, and we've also had our ravas. Then comes on Simchas Torah, and we dance in circles, carrying the Torah, working up to a real frenzy. Did I say dance? Yes. Well, it's more like marching. Your hands over the next guy's shoulder, singing and stumping as you march. The same place you started from. Repeat until you platz. And are we normal? The short answer is yes. No, you don't see this at your typical social club event. But then, as an anthropologist will tell you, it's modernity that's weird, not the other way around. People have been dancing in circles, in celebration, in ritual, and just have fun in every part of the world ever since there were circles and people. It's just that it takes Jewish genius to continue doing something so tribal in such an extremely post-tribal world. So now for my confession. I guess I'm also part of those weird modern people. When I first, joined, of course, being part of joining the circular dancing, I should say, I was saying to myself, what's the point of walking such a way that you don't need to get any further than the way you started? It doesn't get you any further. You go in a circle, you go in a circle. Needless to say, the argument was ignored, and I was swept. When I tried to ask this question, I was swept into the circle, whether I liked it or not. So think about this. What exactly is going on? I felt a little stupid. For about the first 40,000 circuits, after that I forgot about myself and how I felt and what I was doing and why I was doing it and whatever, and whether I was stupid and that I was there at all. And that's when the circle becomes good, very good. It was good exactly due to that which I had subliminally feared, because as I stand here, I am I in the circle, that I dissolves into we, and in that very act of transcendence, that loss itself, there is an unbounded joy. There are other ways to dissolve the I into we. You can march into war, or march for a cause. You can rave at a concert. You can throw rocks at a protest, or just go wild in the bleachers cheering for your team at a football game. But there's a difference. The march is going somewhere, against someone, for something, saying something. The concert, the protest, the game, there's something there, an intrinsic force that is all uniting everybody, stripping human beings of the sense of individual selfness, and rendering them into this monstrous mass. In the circle, there's no cause, no reason, no enemy, and nowhere we are going. We're just one, because we are. Rashi explains this. When Pharaoh and the army chased after the children of Israel, Rashi says that they came b'leiv echad k'ish echad, with one heart and one person. Heart first, then person. When the children of Israel camped at Mount Sinai, Rashi says that they camped as one person with one heart. First the person and then the heart. Why this switch? Why one place we when being chased by the Pharaoh and his army, it's one heart as one person, and now suddenly we have the opposite. It switches where we put the person first and then the heart. Why would this be? Because Pharaoh and his army were many individuals united by a cause. The children of Israel were one because they unite intimately one, and that no one has one heart, and that one now had one heart as well. So the Zulu have a word for this called Ubuntu, generally translate by the as the word community or social responsibility, because that's all they knew. But the entire world that we have lost in our modernity opens before us when a tribesman is asked to explain the world. He will say it means, I am because we are. We are because I am. To feel one with the people of your village, that is a lost treasure. Really is a lost treasure. To be one with the people spread over the furthest reaches of the planet for 2,000 years, spreading different languages, living vastly different lifestyles, that is godly. So after a joyous festival of Jews coming together in each other's sukkahs, in the synagogue and in kosher markets, and buying oodles of food to feed each other in those sukkahs, God asks us to come spend one more day of festivity called Shmini Atzeres. That means the 8th day of holding back. This is what we're celebrating in the next 24 hours, Shmini Atzeres. Who's holding back what? And the Malish explains, it's hard for me to see you part from one another. That's what God says to us. Hold back another day and we'll celebrate together. You see, we've been celebrating, as we all know, the Jewish holidays have been going on and on, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, the beginnings of Sukkot, and we linger on one more day. So we celebrate, we are one in the oneness of a circle, so that we stay one even when we part, because we are. So as you can see, there is so much to learn and to appreciate. And bottom line, though, friends, is please check out the times in your synagogue and your temple when they're having the Shmini Atzeres celebrations, and be part of it. And you're certainly more than welcome to join us at ours at Congregation Beth Shalom Chabad of Mineola. So on the final festival day of Tishrei, of our holidays, we celebrate Simchas Torah. That will be on Monday night into Tuesday. We complete the annual reading of the Torah, and it is one of the most joyous events in the Jewish calendar. The occasion is marked by taking out the Holy Torahs from the Ark and dancing with them. This practice is not just a method of celebration, but even the way we dance carries a deep message. The human body is divided into 3 parts: the head, the body, and the feet. Each part represents another aspect of human experience. The head represents our intellect and the power of our cognition. Our body contains our heart, which symbolizes our feelings and emotions. And the feet stand for action. Dancing happens when we lift our feet off the ground. When we do that, our heads are now lifted higher. Symbolically, this means that when we practice what we learn, our minds are elevated to a higher level. Implementing the values and principles that we study gives the knowledge and the academic concepts depth and meaning. So on Simchas Torah, we celebrate the completion of the Torah and express our Jewishness with great intensity and happiness. But we do so by declaring our commitment to bring the values of Torah down to the world of action. When we lift our feet and dance with the Torah, with the scroll, the Torah itself is elevated. When we lift our feet, committing ourselves to one more good deed, our minds and our Torah that we are holding are now able to dance. Not everyone is a scholar, and we may not understand everything written in the Torah, but we can all do something. So on this Simchas Torah, make sure, dear friends, to dance. Lift your feet higher and higher. And while you dance, think of one mitzvah that you can do this coming year. The Torah will dance with you and shower upon you all of its blessings. Now you see, every week of the year, another of the Torah's 54 sections is studied, publicly read in the synagogue, and its lessons apply to daily living. Therefore, as we live with the Torah, the 5 books of Moses are his calendar, their chapters and verses marking, defining, molding, and inspiring the weeks and the days of the entire year. So Simchas Torah is the day in which we conclude the annual Torah reading cycle. On this day, we read the Torah section of V'zois HaBracha and immediately begin a new Torah reading cycle with the reading of the first chapter of Genesis. So Simchas Torah means rejoicing of the Torah, for the Torah rejoices on this day. The Torah is the stuff of our life, our link with our Creator. It's our national mandate, the very purpose of our existence. But each of us is no less crucial to the Torah than the Torah is to us. It is he or she who devotes their life to its study, teaching and practicing. He or she who carries its wisdom and ethos to all the peoples of the earth. He or she who translates its precepts and ideals into concrete reality. So if we rejoice in the Torah and Simchas Torah, lifting its holy scrolls into our arms and filling the synagogues with song and dance, the Torah too rejoices with us on this day. The Torah too wishes to dance, but it's lacking the physical apparatus to do so. I mean, I've yet to see Torah to have its own legs. So in a sense, in the deeper sense, in the meaningful sense, the Torah employs the body of ourselves to be its body. On Simchas Torah, we become the dancing feet of the Torah. Again, though, Simchas Torah is immediately following the festival of Sukkot. Indeed, the biblical name for Simchas Torah is Shmini Atzeres, which means the 8th day of retention. For the function of this festival is for us to retain and absorb the attainments of all the 7 days of Sukkot. As I pointed out before, outside of the land of Israel, where the festival of Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, is observed for 2 days, the name Shmini Atzeres is usually applied to the first day and Simchas Torah to the second. In essence, however, these 2 days constitute a single festival, and the name Shmini Atzeres applies to both its days. But why celebrate Simchas Torah on Shmini Atzeres, the 22nd and 23rd days of the month of Tishrei? As a rule, the festivals are located at points of the calendar that mark the historical sources of their import and significance. Passover is observed on the 15th day of Nisan. That's the actual anniversary of our exodus from Egypt on Passover. Rosh Hashanah occurs on the first day of the month of Tishrei, the date of creation of Adam, and so on. Accordingly, would it not have been more appropriate to rejoice over the Torah on the 6th of Sivan? That's the day on which God revealed himself at Mount Sinai and granted us the Torah. Indeed, we mark that date with a festival called Shavuot, a festival devoted to re-experiencing the revelation at Sinai and reiterating our covenant with God forged by the Torah. Yet our joy in the Torah is reserved for the festival of Shmini Atzeres, a date which has no apparent historical connection to our relationship to the Torah. So what's going on here? So one might explain that our living with the Torah through the annual reading cycle, studying it and implementing it in our daily lives, is of greater experience than our original receiving of it at Mount Sinai. But this itself requires explanation. Why do we conclude and begin the Torah on Shmini Atzeres? Why did Moses, who established the Torah reading cycle, not schedule it to end and recommend, re-begin again on the festival of Shavuos? So actually, a closer look at this holiday that we're about to celebrate, looking at Shmini Atzeres and Shavuos, reveals a striking resemblance between the two festivals. Shavuos too carries the name Atzeret, for it too serves as a vehicle of retention and absorption for the festival that precedes it. The resemblance is further intensified by the fact that, like Shmini Atzeres, Shavuos is also the 8th day of retention, a 1-day festival which concludes a cycle of 7. Shmini Atzeres immediately follows the 7 days of Sukkot, while Shavuot closes a 7-week count begun on Passover. So these 2 days of retention, 2 days of Atzeres, mirror each other across the yearly cycle. We have, in our Jewish year, it's like a circle with 2 poles. 2 key months, Nisan and Tishrei, are both considered, each in its own realm, to be the first and the head of the entire year. The 15th day of Nisan, the date of the Exodus, and begins the 7th day of the 7th-day festival of Passover. Exactly 6 months later, the 15th of Tishrei begins another 7-day festival, and that is the holiday of Sukkot. And both of these 7-day festivals are capped by a 1-day Atzeres. So we go from the 7 days of Passover to the 1 day of Atzeres on Shavuos. We go from the 7th day of holiday of Sukkot to the 8th day of Atzeres. The only break in the symmetry is the fact that the Atzeres of Sukkot is literally a contiguous 8th to its 7th, while Passover's Atzeres is more distant 8th, following a count of 49, 7 times 7 days that begins on the 2nd day of Passover. This led the Talmudical sage Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi to say that the Atzeres of the festival of Sukkot should have been 50 days later, like the Atzeres of Passover. Just like we wait for that concluding 8th day after 50 days for Passover, should be the same thing over here. So why indeed does Shmini Atzeres immediately follow Sukkot? Rabbi Yeshua offers the following parable in explanation for this. A king had many daughters. Some of them were married off nearby, and some of them were married off faraway places. One day, they all came to visit the king, their father. Said the king, "Those who are married off nearby have the time to go and come, but those who are married off and live afar, they do not have the time to come and go. It's not so easy to come. Since they are all here with me, I will make one festival for them all, and I shall rejoice with them." Therefore, the Atzeres of Passover, when we're coming from the winter into the summer, God says they have time to go and come. But with Atzeres of Sukkot, since we're coming from the summer into the winter, and the dust of the roads is difficult, and the byroads are difficult, God says they do not have the time to go back and schlep back again. Since they're all here, let's make the one festival for them now, and let's rejoice together. So this explains now the significance of this Shmini Atzeres. To better understand the significance of Rabbi Yeshua's question and the answer provided by his parable, we must first examine what's the concept. I keep on using the word Atzeres. Look at the Jewish calendar. Tonight, tomorrow is called Shmini Atzeres. Why does the festival require Atzeres? What is the difference between an Atzeres that immediately follows the festival, or the one that we had that follows 50 days after Passover of Shavuos, which is also called Atzeres? So the Hasidic masters explain that the Atzeres is the absorption and the internalization of what was earlier realized and expressed on a more external level. So Atzeres is what digestion is to eating, what assimilation is to study, and what conception is to marriage. Our receiving the Torah on Shavuos is the Atzeres of our liberation from slavery 7 weeks later. On Passover, we became a free people, free of the taskmasters, free of subjugation, and at that time, Egypt was the most debased society on earth. But what is freedom? How is it to be digested, internalized, and integrated into our day-to-day existence? It is freedom from responsibility. Is it that? From burden of is freedom the definition of someone who's burdened from moral choices, from purpose and definition to life? If such is freedom, then the most liberated creature on earth is the slave. Indeed, this was the freedom people yearn for when they complained to Moses about several months later. Oh, we remember the fish which we ate in Egypt for free. So when God revealed himself to Moses in the burning bush and charged him with the mission of taking the Jewish people out of Egypt, he expressed to him the nature of the freedom to be bestowed. He said, "This is the sign that you have sent me," says God, "that I have sent you when you take this nation out of Egypt." So the purpose of Exodus was that it should be led to Sinai. The freedom that God promised was not merely a freedom from the geographical borders of Egypt, but the freedom from all constraints and limitations, physical, psychological, external, or internal. Freedom from doubt, freedom from hazard and inconsistency, freedom from servitude to one's own nature, drives and desires. Freedom which enables the soul to realize her full potential, to experience her intrinsic bond with her essence and source, to actualize her mission and purpose in life. In other words, the freedom to be fully and uninhibitedly oneself. Such freedom is possible only through Torah, the divinely authorized and authored blueprint for creation, which guides and directs us towards the understanding and the actualization of who and what we truly are. So every year, after receiving the gift of the freedom of the 15th of Nisan, we embark on a 49-day process of absorption and internalization, which culminates on Shavuos, Atzeres. So for 7 weeks, we labor to assimilate the true inner significance of the Exodus into our 49 traits and sub-traits of our souls, to mature into a state of inherent freedom. Therefore, we graduate, as Rabbi Shur expresses, we graduate from winter to summer, from the chill of aimlessness to the warmth of passionate purpose, from the hardship of struggle to the delight of achievement, from the gloom of ignorance to the clear summer light of wisdom and understanding. And then, 6 months later, comes the festival of his high holidays of Tishrei. For life is not the unbroken progression of development and growth that we plan it and we always think of it to be. Instead, life brings its blunders, its failings, its regressions. Our life as a nation was no different. A few short weeks after we stood at Sinai, beheld our Creator, attaining this pinnacle of freedom and perfection, Oy Gewalt, comes the golden calf being worshipped. But every fall also provides with a momentum for a subsequent rise. The debacle of the golden calf gave us Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, and the source of an even deeper connection to Torah that the revelation at Sinai on Shavuos had achieved. So following the revelation at Sinai, God gave Moses the 2 tablets of the covenant on which he inscribed the 10 commandments, which encapsulate the entire Torah. Upon beholding the terrible violation of everything that the tablets stood for, Moses throws the tablets from his hands and breaks them at the foot of the mountain. But out of those shattered tablets and covenant, a second set of tablets was born. A set of tablets containing the Torah on a level that the earlier did not set and could not include. On the 10th day of Tishrei, we observe ever since then Yom Kippur. God gave us the second tablets, conveying to us a dimension of Torah that only a regenerative power of teshuvah, or return, can invoke. So on the basic level, the Torah is a set of divinely ordained precepts, a list of do's and don'ts, which outline the manner in which the Creator of life desired that it to be lived. To act accordingly is to connect to God. This was the dimension of Torah that God inscribed on the first tablets. But the Torah is much more than that, as evidenced by the fact that the Torah itself provides a formula for mistakes in its call to Teshuvah, welcoming us back. We're able to rebuild a shattered relationship. One must access that part of the relationship that was never damaged in the first place. The possibility of Teshuvah means that even when a person violates the divine will, God forbid, the essence of his connection or her connection with God is not affected. And the fact that the Torah itself includes the precept of Teshuvah means the Torah is the vehicle not only for the connection between ourselves and God, which is expressed and actualized by our observance, but also even for the mistake of, even if there's an inviolable bond, our soul remains unaffected by what we may have done. So also, one who has shattered the first tablets, that's the dimension of his relationship with God, he can reach a deeper one, to the very heart of our relationship, tapped by the hunger, the longing, the recoil of Teshuvah, and rebuild it anew. So as long as we do not stray from the straight and the true path of Torah ordained by Torah, well, that was no need to talk about Teshuvah. That is why the first tablets contained only the conventional aspects of Torah, while the deeper function of Torah remained somewhat locked. It was the second tablets, the product of our repentant response to our first and prototypical fall as a people, upon which Hashem wrote the essence of Torah, the bond between Him and what transcends its laws and commandments, as in the concept of Teshuvah. And that is what Sukkot is, the celebration of Yom Kippur. Teshuvah, by its very nature, is an inverted act. A soul secludes herself with her God, agonizes over the distance she has created between them, and in the depth of her anguish finds the redeeming element of her iniquities, the power to repair and sublime her defective past. So this private nature of Teshuvah is demonstrated by a marked difference between the manner in which we receive the first and second tablets. On Shavuos, the entire Jewish nation gathered around Mount Sinai amidst a tremendous display of divine power. There was thunder and there was lightning, there was clouds of fire and smoke, and the blowing of the shofar, as Hashem communicated the Ten Commandments to all of us. But when Moses received the second set of tablets on Yom Kippur, no one was there. God instructed them to be silent in the private affair, befitting the still and deep waters of what Teshuvah is all about. So Yom Kippur is hardly the environment for manifest joy and celebration. And yet, what greater joy can there be for a person than this joy of the second tablets, which is in essence the all-enduring bond with the Creator. And the nature of joy is that it refuses to confine itself in the inner sanctum of one's heart. What do? How do we show our expression of joy? It bursts, it seems, floods the body, pours out of our throat in song, and sets the feet dancing. Therefore, the festival of Sukkot that we're now in the concluding day is called a time of joy. 5 days later, on the 15th of Tishrei, we follow up from Yom Kippur into this week of joy. Sukkot is the joy of Yom Kippur that comes to light, the joy at the solemnity and the inwardness of the day that had been concealed now becomes available to all of us. So for 7 days, the joy mounts, but as with the freedom gained on Passover, the joy of Teshuvah must be absorbed and internalized. Instead of remaining in a once-in-a-year experience, it has to be integrated into our nature and daily existence. So the 7-day festival of Sukkot is followed by this Atzeres, a day in which our joy with the essence of Torah reaches its peak and is immediately married, so to speak, to the cycle of our year-round lives. Therefore, the Passover Shavuos orbit on one hand, and the Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres constellation on the other hand, represent two dimensions of Torah and its role as the facilitator of the bond between ourselves and the Almighty God. The journey from Passover to Shavuos represents the straight and true path outlined by Torah. The careful climb from ignorance and selfishness to infancy to spiritual and moral maturity. The step-by-step progress of the righteous individual, the tzaddik, who labors for a lifetime to develop the inherent goodness and perfection of his soul while safeguarding himself from all the pitfalls of the corrupting surrounding world. On the other hand, the second tablets of Yom Kippur and their celebration and internalization on Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres represents the triumph of the Baal Teshuvah, the master of return, the one who, having succumbed to trials of earthly life, have exploited the negativity of the condition to touch the very core of his or her and her soul and stimulate its most quintessential powers. And this is reflected in the alignment of these two festival systems with the seasons of the year. The springtime festivals of Passover and Shavuos mark the passage from winter to summer. That embodies the tzaddik, the matured progression of this righteous individual from bud to bloom, from darkness and cold to light and warmth, from spiritual infancy to maturity. The autumn festivals of Tishrei that we're now in represent the Baal Teshuvah's return to the cold and the gloom of the winter to uncover the treasures that are hidden inside of us. Now we might understand what Rabbi Yeshua's parable was and how it explains the difference between the Atzeres of Passover and the Atzeres of Sukkot. The supernal king has many married daughters, many souls who have embarked on the mission and the challenge of this physical world. The soul comes down to earth, is joined to a body in order that they union come together and yield a life of good deeds. Deeds which sanctify the material world around us and fulfill God's purpose of making this world. Hence the depiction of the soul's earthly sojourn as a marriage relationship. Some of the king's daughters are married off in a near place. These are the souls of the righteous, who though they descend into this physical world, they never lose sight of their royal origins. They deal with the material and developing and refining their own physical natures and the world above them, but without falling prey to any adverse influences. They have left their father's home, but never wandered off too far. But the king also has daughters whose marriages have led them to faraway places. Souls whose involvement with the material reality have taken them far from the royal palace. Souls who have become deeply enmeshed in the mundane aspects that they've come into this world for. So there are tzaddikim and there are Baalei Teshuvas. There's the righteous and then there's those who returned. There's also the tzaddik and the Baal Teshuva. Within each and every one of us, we each have our moments and areas of perfect righteousness, moments and areas of our life that remain forever unsullied by the evil we must contend with. And virtually every person has had the experience, to a greater or lesser extent, of grappling with that evil, being tainted by it, and being challenged to surmount the fall, only to be driven by it to an even greater heights than the perfect self could ever attain. Passover is the festival of the tzaddik, of the righteous within us. On Passover we taste the pure, untarnished freedom of a newborn people. So the Atzeres of Passover comes 50 days later. For in the springtime, the roads are clear. We have time to go and come. We are free to methodically make our way through the 49 steps from the revelation of Passover to the internalization of Shavuos. It's kind of a gradual, step-by-step journey. Characteristics of the gradual, step-by-step life of the tzaddik, of the righteous individual. But on Sukkot, we celebrate our capacity for teshuvah, our bond with God that is embodied by the second tablets. At this reunion of the daughters that are married afar with their father and king, they have not the time to come and go. For we are coming from the summer into the winter, and the dust of the roads is difficult, and the by-roads are difficult. We are journeyers along the volatile path of teshuvah, where opportunities must be grasped as they come, and lives are unmade and remade in a single explosive moment. So we plunge directly from Sukkot into the Atzeres of Simchas Torah, directly into the immediate internalization of the second tablet's edition of the Torah and its retention through the winters and summers to come. A young woman from Miami Beach, Florida, recently separated. This is a beautiful story, my friends, of how relationships, the effort made to help such people. A young woman from Miami Beach, Florida, recently separated from her husband. This story is, quite a few years back. But she had recently separated from her husband, and she was online to receive the traditional honey cake from the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of righteous memory. The Rebbe had this custom before Yom Kippur, or on a day like this, Hoshana Rabbah, the day before Shmini Atzeres, to distribute honey cake and wish each recipient with a sweet Niyah, once on the eve of Yom Kippur and once on the last day of the holiday of Sukkot, today known as Hoshana Rabbah. This story took place on Hoshana Rabbah, which is also the day that precedes the holiday of Simchas Torah, as we've been learning, one of the most joyous holidays on the Jewish calendar. So this lady's turn arrives. As she stretches out her hand to receive the cake, the Rebbe asked if her husband, Louis, was also in New York. She responded that to the best of her knowledge, he was not. The Rebbe then asked if she knew where he was. She responded that she had no idea where he was. Louis had sadly become an alcoholic and had drifted away from family life. Do you know if anyone might know how to contact him? The Rebbe asked. And a certain Rabbi Bucket, a close friend of his, she said, he may know how to reach him. And he was a student at that time from Miami, learning at the yeshiva. The Rebbe turned to one of his aides and asked if he could find this individual. His name was Alti Bucket. The aide ran downstairs to the study hall of the yeshiva, searching for Alti. He found him and explained that the Rebbe wanted him immediately. Alti dashed to where the Rebbe was distributing the cake, and the Rebbe asked whether he knew how to contact Louis. I do, Alti said. And the Rebbe said to him, I would like for Louis to attend tonight's Hakafot, because we know this evening, on Sunday evening, as we start this holiday of Shmini Atzeres, we dance called Hakafot. And the Rebbe said, I'd like to invite this Louis to come and join in the dancing with the Torahs on Simchas Torah. Alti immediately contacted this Louis and asked him to fly to New York immediately. In the beginning, he didn't want to come. Then he finally came to him, explained to him the Rebbe and invited him to attend. He consented. He arrived just before the holiday. That night and on the following night, Louis immensely enjoyed the dancing and the singing. The Rebbe made eye contact with him and with this individual Louis, and smiled at him a number of times, nodding to him, acknowledging him. And after the holiday, as Louis passed by the Rebbe with a loving smile said, I was happy to see you in good spirits during the holiday. Try to work out your problems and do not be foolish about it. Shortly thereafter, Louis sobered up and was reunited with his family. Again, it's a period of time of coming together, sobering up, preparing ourselves for the new year. So dear friends, please join us at Chabad of Mineola, join your synagogue, but during the next 48 hours, be part of the dancing of the Torah, dancing of the great Simchas Torah, using the great joy that these 2 days give us to dance into the year. So everything that comes our way this year should be filled with joy and happiness and success, both physically and spiritually. This is your host, Rabbi Perl. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a Chag Sameach and a really, really fantastically good, sweet New Year.